Good evening, everyone. We're going to wait another minute or two before we get started as people continue to sign on. So hopefully you can see the screen. There is a chat function at the bottom of the console or controller. So if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to type in there. But sit tight for about another minute or two, and we'll get started. Thank you. Hello again and good evening. We're still waiting for a few more people to sign on, so just sit tight for another minute or two, and then we'll get started. Thank you. Okay, everyone. Well, thank you for joining our webinar tonight. We are excited to have you here for the CenturyLink Executive Challenge April Training Webinar. And I'm going to hand the microphone over to Mackenzie. Mackenzie, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yep, sure can.
Perfect. Well, hi, everyone. Welcome. I hope everyone is doing well this evening. This is Mackenzie speaking, and I have been your main point of contact thus far throughout the CenturyLink Executive Challenge program, so hopefully my name sounds familiar. We are so pleased to have you all join us tonight as participants in the CenturyLink Executive Challenge. CenturyLink is sponsoring this Race Within a Race to allow this fantastic group of select executives, all of you on the phone, on the webinar this evening to complete in the infamous Leadville Trail 100 MTB. If everyone could please be sure to mute your lines, and we ask you to hold all Q&As until the end of the session. All right, our first slide here is for our Lifetime Executive Challenge staff. I'd love to introduce Ted Kennedy. Ted, are you on the phone?
Hi there, it's Ted. Sorry about the noise in the background. I'm actually on vacation in Tucson in a restaurant right now with a big group, so apologize for all that. So I have run CEO Challenge events since 2001. Started the first CEO Ironman Challenge in Lake Placid, and Lifetime Fitness CEO Challenges 5 years ago. And we have hosted hundreds of events around the world for CEOs, and now that has morphed into an even better program, which we're calling the Executive Challenge. And thanks to companies like CenturyLink, we're able to offer a program with all the bells and whistles. This is our 5th year at Leadville, so we have it pretty well figured out. And what we did was, I sat down with some really smart people like Troy and others and said, okay, if you could design the ultimate program for Leadville to allow these guys and girls to have the best race possible, what would you include? And it was like, well, bike mechanics, so when they arrive, they can make sure their bike is tuned up. Things like aid station, get your special needs bags out to the aid stations, lots of time with some experts. I mean, really, really cool program. So we're thrilled to be offering this program for CenturyLink, and I want to put out some applause to CenturyLink for having the foresight to host a program such as this. So looking very, very forward to meeting the group in August. I know you're all going to have a great day. You're all going to come home with some kind of buckle, some big, some not so big, but we'll do everything we can to make sure everybody comes home with a buckle, and I look forward to meeting you all in August. That's it. Thanks, Kenzie.
Thanks so much, Ted. Our other team member here is Sarah. Sarah, are you on?
I'm here. Thanks, Mackenzie. Like Kenzie said, my name is Sarah Mahan. This will be my 3rd season with the Leadville Race Series as National Account Manager, managing our sponsors for the Leadville Trail 100 and the race itself. And I will be assisting Mackenzie with all things CenturyLink Executive Challenge. Thanks, Mackenzie.
Great. Thanks so much, Sarah. And finally, obviously last, I am Mackenzie, and it's been such a pleasure to work with all of you thus far. I'll be your main point of contact as we lead into race week, and we'll of course be on site to support you along with Ted and Sarah during race weekend. And while I'd love to join you out on course, I won't be participating, but will be out on course supporting your ride. And as always, please feel free to reach out to me within these next few months with questions. Can head to the next slide. Perfect. So next up, I would love to introduce our CenturyLink executives who are participating. For time's sake, we'll just run through a quick intro here. So we have Todd, Guy, Stuart, Brad, Tom, and Brent. And they actually are indicated in green with their photos on our CenturyLink Executive Challenge website. Feel free to reach out to them with any sort of questions, and for networking purposes, that information will be available there. Thank you so much, all of you, for racing. And now I'm going to turn it over to our lifetime endurance training coaches.
Okay, well, thank you, Mackenzie. I'll start off. So my name is Troy Jacobson. I'm the Senior National Director for Endurance Sports Training at Lifetime Fitness, as well as the Signature Program Manager for one of our indoor cycling formats called Power Cycle. My history is mostly as a triathlete, coaching since 1992, used to race as a professional triathlete, have done Ironman Hawaii a whole bunch of times. And actually, over the past 6 years or so, have gotten into mountain bike racing and did Leadville. Gosh, it's been about 6 years, but didn't have a great experience. Ended up with a crash that broke a couple bones and all that kind of good stuff. But I got back on the bike, and I'm back into it now, and just did the 24 hours of Old Pueblo on a relay team here in Tucson. I also live in Tucson, Arizona. And great experience, so love it, love it, love it. I've been with Lifetime now for almost 9 years in this role, and it's just been a blessing to be able to work with such incredible people, such incredible athletes, and I can't wait to work with each of you and help get you to that finish line. So, Trapper, are you on the call?
I sure am. Yeah. Hey,
right,
guys. Thank you so much. Just thrilled to be a part of this and excited to help everyone. I certainly don't have the pedigree that Coach Troy has, but my background is I began as a triathlete over 10 years ago, and eventually worked my way into Xterra Triathlon and finally to just strictly to mountain bike. And the Leadville race has always been a part of me. I grew up in Colorado, ski racing in places like Leadville and nearby. So it's part of who I am and part of my home. I've been with Lifetime now for 6 years as a personal trainer and endurance coach. I manage the personal training department in Centennial at our club here in Colorado. And I'm just more than anything passionate about cycling, passionate about fitness, and this race in particular. Everyone that gets to do this race is part of a family going forward, and I love that family. So again, to reiterate, really looking forward to working with you guys. I hope that you'll feel comfortable reaching out to me, and I know Troy feels the same way, but we're here to help, and that's what the rest of this call is going to be about.
Awesome. So, as Trapper said, we are your resource for everything training, and in today's deck, we're going to walk through some of those aspects to get you started so that you can set your foundation and get ready and prepare properly to have the best race experience possible. So our agenda today, we're going to really touch on, and obviously we don't have a ton of time, but we're going to do our best to touch on the fundamentals of training, because that's what it's all about, sticking to the fundamentals. We're going to go over the training plan that you have access to, that you can download, and how to do that. Trapper's going to talk about cross-training concepts and some of the benefits of leveraging other modalities, other ways of training to enhance your mountain bike experience. And he's also going to talk about the art of racing Leadville as a multi-time finisher. In fact, a multi-time finisher at a very elite level. He has some first-hand knowledge, and of course, there is an art to this as well as a science. And then Mackenzie's going to go over the race week overview and what that's going to look like. And then we'll have a few minutes left over at the end for some Q&A. So it'll be pretty tight, but we're going to get as much done as we can in this hour. So the first thing I want to do is kick things off with a mindset. And I love this quote. I use it all the time, and I think about it all the time. Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. And I know that means different things to different people. To me, it just means no matter how talented you are, you still have to put in the work. And if you are super talented, but you don't put in the work, you're going to be just mediocre. So each one of us has an opportunity to be better, to get stronger on the bike, to go a little bit faster. No matter what your genetics are, no matter what your VO2 max may be, we can each get stronger if we are willing to work hard and prepare. And that's what it's all about, getting out of your comfort zone, making things happen, pushing yourself, because that race, it's not easy, okay? It's not easy, and you have to show up ready to go. And now's your chance. Now's your time to start putting in that work. So keep that in mind. Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. All right, we're going to step right into our deck now and go over the fundamental principles of training for performance. Again, we're going to keep this short in respect of your time so we can get in as much information as possible. But I think it's really important to get grounded in the fundamentals of training because, again, there's a lot of research out there. There's a lot of gimmicks. There's a lot of stuff going on in the exercise sports performance community. And it's always interesting to me. I've been in this business now for a long time. As I mentioned, been racing triathlon since the late 1980s, but I've been coaching as a professional since the very early 1990s. And I've seen everything come and go. Everything comes and goes. But I tell you one thing, everything comes back to the fundamentals. And again, that comes back to basically hard work and being prepared. But let's talk about some of the scientific principles that are really important and what your training plan is based from or off of, okay? Periodization is one of these key principles. Periodization essentially is training your body so that you peak at the right time. And that's an art as much as it is a science. But if you train according to a periodized schedule where you modulate your focus on the various energy systems, you'll bring yourself into peak form at the right time. And that's what the program we have designed for you will do for you. And if you looked at the profile, I don't know if we have it on this deck. I don't think we do. But if you go to the training peaks and you look at the profile, you'll see how the program is designed to get you well rested and in perfect form for race day. One of the key principles is overload. You know, getting out of your comfort zone, pushing your body beyond its limits. They call exercise controlled injury for a reason. That means you overload your systems. You overload your systems, you recover properly, and they build up and they become stronger. So it's really important to remember the program isn't easy. It isn't easy for a reason. It's because we need to overload your systems in order to be stronger. So as a coach, I'm like a cook in the kitchen, and the ingredients I work with are volume, duration, and frequency. So if you look at the training program that we have designed for you, you'll see that there's a lot of volume. You'll be training a lot of miles on the bike every week. In fact, I think the average over the whole 16-week or so training progression is about 10 hours a week on the bike. So that's a lot of time. You know, you guys are working, guys and gals are working a lot and other things going on in your life. But this is an important thing. And we're asking for a 4-month commitment for you to get really ready and prepared for race day. And you can do that. You can find the time. You can find those 10 hours a week to put in the time and be prepared. So we work with volume. Duration is how much you train in each session. And durations vary. The schedule is laid out for people that work primarily during the week, and maybe your weekdays are a little bit busier because of your work schedule, and you might have early morning, afternoon, maybe lunch hour, or evening training blocks. But on weekends, you probably have a little bit more time. So we've built the training schedule each week so that we load the weekends with your higher volume or higher duration workouts, and the weekdays are shorter duration so that you can get in more quality work. But you still have to make the commitment. Then frequency. We're on the bike a lot. I'll be honest with you. We're on the bike 4 to 6 days a week. And the reason for that is frequency is a really important factor in the performance equation. The more you ride as an endurance athlete, to a certain point, the stronger you'll get. If you look at the pros are on their bike practically every day. In fact, as you probably have heard, in the Grand Tours, guess what they do on their rest days? They ride their bikes. So frequency is a really important piece to the puzzle. So you need to be getting on your bike a lot because you get stronger on the bike by riding your bike. Specificity of training. This is especially important with mountain biking. We'll do road training. In fact, there's a fair amount of road training in the program as well as indoor cycling, indoor trainer work. But a lot of your work needs to be specific to the demands of what you experience on race day, and that means developing the skills that you need on the mountain bike. Don't think for a second that you can just ride your road bike and be good out there on the course. Believe me, Leadville has a reputation of being a roadie course, and it probably is to some extent for more experienced mountain bike riders. But take it from me, when I crashed, I kind of thought it was a roadie course. I was humbled quickly because of that, and I wish I'd spent a lot more time on the mountain bike than I did. So specificity of training. Get on that mountain bike, develop your skill sets. Recovery is important. You'll be training a lot. You better recover as hard as you train. In other words, that's when you get stronger. That's a really important part of that performance equation because it's when you recover that you get stronger. And there's a lot of different modalities out there, compression boots, compression garments, icing, all these different things, like massage and so on and so forth. But take advantage of technology and science. Make sure you're recovering quickly. Adaptation to training stress. That's another important piece. Work hard, recover, you adapt and get stronger. Goal setting. Each one of you should have a goal. Each one of you should be thinking about what time do I want to hit? How am I going to raise my functional threshold power between now and race day? You know, Start thinking about the metrics, things that you can measure. That's really important because that's going to keep you on track and accountable to achieving your goals. So think about your goals as you're moving forward. Your focus, we already talked about that a little bit. Your focus and commitment, it's got to be there, guys. It's got to be there. If it's not, it's going to be a long, long day. It's not going to be the kind of experience you want. You have to be focused. You have to make the commitment to do the work. And if you do that, you're going to be ready. Mental toughness. Like any endurance event, comes down to your mental toughness. It comes down to your ability to push yourself and to really dig deep and go out of your comfort zone. And to go out of your comfort zone, not just for minutes, but for hours at a time. So we're going to train your mind. Some of these rides and workouts you'll be doing in training are going to actually really push your limits. But that's okay, right? You want to really find out what you're made of in training and go beyond yourself in training so that on race day, it almost seems easy because you've already done that. You've already been there. So the mental toughness component of racing in any endurance event, especially one like the Leadville Trail 100 mountain bike race, is a big deal. So if you don't consider yourself mentally tough right now, you better start doing that. You better start doing things to cultivate that mental toughness because you'll need it on race day. All right, let's step into our training plan overview now. So the training plan that's been provided for you is on Training Peaks, and the basic template has been available now for several years, and we've had literally hundreds of athletes use a similar template with great success. So there's a lot of confidence in how successful the training program is. On the website, on the Leadville website, there is basically the same tutorial with a step-by-step on how to activate the training plan, how to download the training plan to a free Training Peaks account, their basic account. And it's a nice tool. It's an online tool, and it's nice to have because it gives you the ability to log your training and obviously you can get feedback that way, but it also lets you know every day what you'll need to be doing by sending the workouts to your inbox. So it's fairly simple to do, and the links are available to you online, as well as the steps. And Mackenzie can help you with these steps if you have any problems, or I can as well. And you can see here we have a few of the steps listed in the deck. And this deck will be made available to you as well because we are recording this. So I'll just walk through this pretty quickly. And then you can see it in step number 6 there, the training plan is loaded. So now on the screen, you'll see the anatomy of a training plan. And essentially, every day of the week, you'll see your training. And it'll give you basic detailed instructions on what you should be doing on that particular day, including the amount of time you should be spent. We use duration of training because mileage is relative, right? If you live in a hilly area, riding a 20-mile ride will be a lot different than if you're riding in the flats. So we go more so by time. So you can see there, we do use a little bit of both mileage and time, but one of the key points I want to mention again, the weekdays are designed so that you're not training quite as much, but then the weekends, we load that with more volume. And your intensity is prescribed each day as well. And there are also indoor cycling workouts recommended if you can't get outside. You know, indoor cycling is a great way to put in quality work without a lot of distraction. I always say that an hour on the trainer is worth an hour and a half on the roads. So you can consider the indoor training piece as well to help build your fitness. But every day you'll have training. Every day you'll want to check that box and say you did it. I do have a fudge factor in this program, just so you know. It's 10%, okay? It's the 10% rule. So if you do 90% of the prescribed workouts, you're on target. I put that 10% fudge factor in because I know life gets in the way, all right? And nobody's going to be perfect. Nobody's going to follow this program with 100% compliance, and I don't expect anyone to. But you want to try to get in that 90% compliance to the very best of your ability. And I tell you what, if you miss a couple days because you're traveling for work, don't try to make it up that next day, okay? It's water under the bridge at that point. It's not going to help you and it's not going to hurt you. Just get right back on the program. Also, another quick note on traveling, which I'm sure a lot of you do. the hotel gym, it's okay. If they have a life cycle stationary bike, you can put in a really good quality half an hour workout on that life cycle or stationary bike, and I highly recommend that you do. And I'd be more than happy to give you short workouts to do if you are traveling. So you'll have my contact information, and you can feel free to reach out to me anytime. And I'll help you in any way I can to make suggestions to modify the workout if you find yourself on the road and unable to complete the training sessions. All right? So that's the anatomy of a training plan. So right now I'm going to hand it over to Trapper to go into some cross-training concepts. And I appreciate your time in going over the fundamentals and the anatomy of the training plan. And I'll hang on here and be available for Q&A at the end of the call. Trapper?
Yeah, thank you, Coach. I appreciate it. So, guys, this is where I live. I live in the gym. This is my life, my career. I work with athletes of all shapes and sizes, all ability levels, and I want to just convey some key points around what you can do in the gym that's either helpful or potentially not helpful, and how to sort of structure that stuff. It's going to be high level at this point, but I encourage you all to take notes, jot down questions that you may have, and certainly reach out to me after this call if we don't get it in the Q&A. So first question that most people ask is, how much does your training program in the gym carry over to the sport you're training for? Well, you'd be surprised to know that it's probably nowhere near as much as you would imagine. And we'll get to this in the next slide, but it's a principle that's widely accepted and utilized in our industry, and it's the SAID principle, S-A-I-D, specific adaptation to impose demands. Now, again, I'll dive into that more. Are there exceptions? Yeah, of course there are exceptions. We want to focus on muscle groups that are going to be pertinent to what we do. So a good example of a bad exercise to spend a lot of time doing is a bench press, right? What good is a big chest going to do you on the mountain bike? I would argue very little. You might say, sure, it could stabilize your upper body, but very little. So really think hard about the time that you may spend cross-training and be very specific. I don't doubt that every single one of you, your time is more valuable than just about any other resource you have. So to Troy's point in the program that he's created, and the point I want to make here is, do not waste your time doing things that may not be necessary, that may not yield the same kind of benefits. So let's move on to the next slide, Troy. The things to consider, right? So does this movement facilitate more efficiency on the bike? Again, think of examples that you might currently be doing in the gym. Bicep curl, does that facilitate more efficiency on the bike? Well, likely not. A lunge? Yeah, absolutely. Does my set and rep structure facilitate more power or stamina on the bike? And that question is kind of bifold. Are you doing 3 sets of 10 reps of certain exercises? I'll argue that doesn't facilitate either. Power is going to be fewer reps, much heavier weights. Stamina is going to be much higher reps, lighter weights. We want to incorporate a little bit of both of these if you intend to cross-train toward your goal. Does my strength work improve my VO2 max? This is a term that a lot of athletes toss around. It's more a prediction of performance, and I would allow Troy certainly to inject his feelings on VO2 max, but there's very little that you'll do in a strength training scenario that's going to impact your VO2 max other than potentially Tabata style training or a very intense burst of effort for less than 30 seconds, followed by a short rest period, generally around 10 to 15 seconds. Those kinds of activity in the gym are scientifically proven to improve peak VO2. And as we get toward the end of this deck, you'll see how that can be impactful for you racing in Leadville. Does my strength program improve my power to weight ratio? Again, if we're in the gym lifting like a bodybuilder, we're doing ourselves an injustice, right? We want to be leaning out. We want to be getting strong without adding size and without adding unnecessary weight to our frame. Am I risking injury with my strength program? Well, if we're doing movements that we're not comfortable with, or we see someone do a power clean or some kind of power Olympic lift, and we think, hey, I'm going to go give that a shot, I urge you, do not, at least not without some kind of coaching or guidance. Stick to the basics, stick to the things that we know are going to help, and we're going to get into a lot of the muscles that are necessary for cycling in a second. And then the most important question, am I seeing results that matter? So ask yourself that on a regular basis. If you're in the gym, are you doing something that's going to facilitate your success on the bike? Are you checking your weight? Are you checking your body fat percentage? Are you looking at metrics like your volume of oxygen taken in? Are you doing metabolic assessments? These are all things that we can dive more into, again, on a one-off basis, and I would love to offer my advice on that kind of stuff. So let's move on. Again, here's the SAID principle, right? When the body is placed under some form of stress, it starts to make adaptations that will allow the body to get better at withstanding that specific form of stress in the future. So while it's almost impossible to understand and account for the many different mechanisms in devising a training program, it is easy to remember the general SAID principle. And that means the body is always trying to get better at exactly what you practice. So the whole point in this message is cycling requires cycling. I know it seems like a funny concept. Again, if you're cross-training, it might be 1, maybe 2 days a week, and I know Troy has included this in the program. I highly advocate it, but the biggest point to take away here is be on your bike. Absolutely be on your bike. You can see in this diagram, we look at some of the important muscles in cycling and to what percentage or extent they're being utilized. Hip flexors, knee extensors, otherwise known as the quads, right, the top of the leg. Ankle plantar flexors, otherwise known as your calf. Ankle dorsiflexors, your shin, the front of the leg. Hip flexors, knee flexors, hamstrings, and glutes. All of these things that we want to think about are essentially waist down. Now, I will make the caveat that any kind of power and or performance is elicited through the periphery from a stable core. So do not make a mistake in that your core strength is hugely important in your overall strength and being able to produce power through the legs and stability through the upper body. I'm going to leave it at that for now. We can dive in deeper on that at a later time. Do you need any other skills in Leadville? It's a great question. And the answer is yeah, absolutely. And I certainly don't intend any offense on this statement, but you need to practice hiking and stair climbing. And why is that? Because I guarantee most of us are going to be pushing our bikes at some point in time on this course. We're going to look at the course profile here in a second, and you'll see exactly why I'm getting to this point. So let's hit the next slide. We can drop through this. Yeah, so here's our course profile, team. This is a daunting image because it's 104 miles shrunk into about 8 inches of chart. So these huge spikes are a little more mellow than they appear, but do not for 1 minute underestimate this course and underestimate the pain it can put you through if you're not prepared. So you see some of these large spikes, particularly in the middle of the course, and then in the second half as we're coming back into the town of Leadville. Really strong chance that you'll be pushing your bike up a lot of those sections. So I know it's not in Coach's program on Training Peaks, but practice pushing your bike up a hill. Get off, get back on, get used to the feeling of going from pedaling with zero impact to going to hiking and pushing with considerable impact. A short story I'll share with you is my race last year did not go as planned by any means. I suffered multiple flats within about a minute of one another, front and rear tire, and ended up having to actually hike down most of the power line descent on the way out. And I underestimated how much that was going to fry my legs. I could hardly pedal the rest of the course, and I suffered and limped my way back in because it thrashed my legs. So again, another testament to the idea of cross training and getting on and off your bike, some runs here and there, but pushing your bike, getting up the hills, doing some hiking. It will pay dividends in the long run, I promise. Yeah, before you jump, Troy, sorry, one last point on that last slide, you guys. I want to bring up that last 3 miles. We don't ride that last 3 miles on the way out of town. So it is something that comes as a big shocker to most people, and it's called the Boulevard. It's kind of the biggest gut punch in racing that I'm aware of. So when you feel like you're to the end and you've about had it and you're ready to cross that finish line, you need to know that it's not over at 100 miles. It's not over until 104 miles. So be prepared for this last little climb. Know it's coming so that it doesn't hit you like a ton of bricks. Thanks, Troy. Let's move on. This is a question that almost everyone asks because we're traveling to a city that's at 10,000 feet above sea level. We're racing a course that exists primarily between 10,000 and 12,500 feet. So how does elevation impact my performance? So a couple things of note here. First of all, if you're thinking about trying to acclimate, I will tell you that scientific evidence and data tells us it will take 3 weeks for you to acclimate to the elevation of 10,000 feet. So unless you plan on getting out there 3 weeks ahead of time, which some of you may very well be planning to do, we're going to operate in this middle column here, the non-acclimated column, with respect to functional threshold power. And if this is terminology that's unfamiliar to you, I'll simplify by just saying the amount of force you can produce on the bike at sea level is going to be a detriment at altitude, right? So if you look in that middle column, you're going to lose roughly 20% of your functional threshold power. What does that mean? Well, let's just say on average, and I think this is a generous average, if your functional threshold power is 200 watts, it's going to equate to about 9 watts at 10,000 feet. Is that a significant amount? I'm going to argue no, because after all, the idea behind this race is finding a way to pace yourself and apply steady workload over the course of 104 miles. So my point in presenting this slide and talking a little bit about it is I don't want this to get too much in your head. You're going to do all the preparation necessary, and Coach Troy has facilitated that with his program. If you're sticking to that, you will be as prepared as you possibly can be, and you'll be, along with 95% of the rest of the group that's racing this event, you'll be in that category that's only able to access about 80% of their total power. So to whatever extent you can be diligent and disciplined with following the program, being on your bike, focusing on your fitness and your nutrition, you'll see a huge payoff at altitude. But again, any other questions on this stuff, we can certainly take offline. That's really all I wanted to dive into right now. There's a lot more to it, and all the logistics of being on course and aid stations and all that stuff. I'd love to field those questions in one-off situations. I have raced this course 6 times, and just about all my finishes have been under 8 hours. So I'd like to think I've got a good ability to present necessary information for you guys to be successful in whatever your goal is. So with that, I'm going to say thanks a lot, and I think we're, apologize, one last slide. Choosing the right equipment. We'll make it quick here, but undisputed champion of wheel sizes, especially for this race, is going to be 29-inch wheel. So if for any reason you're still in the market for a bike, 29 is the way to go. Full suspension, hardtail, rigid, fat bike. My hope is, unless you're out there strictly for fun, and some of us are, you want to be on a hardtail. It's absolutely the most efficient power transfer. It's the lightest bike you can come up with, and it'll be the fastest option for you in a race like this. Your tires, again, we'll get into this, but you're going to be looking for something that's more of a low profile tire, less knobby, faster rolling, and narrow in width. If there's any question in your mind whether to run tubes or convert to tubeless, it's tubeless, in so many different reasons, for rolling efficiency, speed, and of course any sort of risk of puncture and being able to seal those tires back up. Your pressure, that's going to depend on the manufacturer of the tire and your weight, but certainly a much lower pressure for a tubeless tire, somewhere in the I'll just say 20 to 28 pound per square inch range. Gearing, big question. How many chain rings up front? Most bikes these days don't have 3 chain rings up front anymore, so we're down to the 1 or 2. A lot of us are going to be looking for 2 chain rings because we want the option of dropping into a really easy gear to pedal up those steep hills, and then being able to hit a pretty heavy gear for rolling on the flats. But the lightest option, and a lot of these companies, SRAM specifically, going with their Eagle setup, is going to a 1x up front, 1 chain ring, and an 11-speed cassette in the back, or 12-speed now. It's lighter, it's more efficient, less chance of dropping a chain. So again, if you're still in the market, be looking for a 1x setup. That's 1 chain ring up front, with a wide variety of cassette options in the back. And then nutrition, again, guys, a lot of us are going to be thinking, how do I get enough nutrition? How do I get enough calories to get through this training program, get through this race? And I'll argue every day, every minute, that it's quality over quantity. So we can dive more into that, but be thinking, looking for resources on proper nutrition. Certainly reach out to me on that. I've got some great resources for you. And I've struggled with it as much as anyone else out there, and I can give you some great tips on nutrition. I think that's my last slide. All right, race week overview.
All right, so this is where I come back in. It's Mackenzie again. This is actually placed on the website, but I did want to place it here for everyone's review as well. This will be the official CenturyLink Executive Challenge race kit. And the shorts that you are seeing are going to be bib shorts. And then you'll just want to note that the bib shorts and jersey will be arriving in the mail to you a month out. And the jacket you will actually receive at the welcome reception and dinner. Next slide, please. And then I'll just do sort of a brief overview here of the schedule, but definitely go in and take a look at that on the website in more detail. Some of the highlights there are that you will have bike mechanics available to you on Thursday and Friday, and then of course out on course. But they will be 2 dedicated bike mechanics for this program. And then our welcome reception and dinner will be on Thursday evening. And that will actually be where you will receive a welcome bag, printed details for the week, your race jacket, race packet, and of course get to know your fellow CenturyLink Executive Challenge participants. And then on Friday, an important couple things to note there, our spin out ride that will be led by Chapper. And then we will have the mandatory athlete briefing, and that's for the Leadville race as a whole. And then finally, to conclude on Friday, we'll have a luncheon with more in-depth race strategy, and that will be hosted by Chaffer. Then Saturday is race day, so definitely swing by the house if you'd like some breakfast in the morning, drop off any aid station items, and then we'll meet you out on course after you start, and then To complete the ride afterwards, we will, of course, have a shower available to you. You're welcome to change the CenturyLink house, and we'll have pizza and I'm sure some beer as well. And then finally, Sunday, just one thing there, and that's the General Leadville Trail 100 MTV Awards ceremony. We certainly hope that you'll join us there, and that's also where you will pick up your belt buckles. 3 final additional points until we get into the Q&A. If you do need to ship bikes, please feel free to reach out to me and I can get you some details on that. I know that some of you are local to Colorado, but for any of those traveling, I'd certainly be happy to get you details and get you squared away there. Secondly, don't forget to complete the online form, please, when you do have a moment. We don't want you to remain faceless on there. We want to get a photo up so that everybody else can get to know you. And the recording will be sent out tomorrow, so that will also be available via email. And then one final point I have for you is that we are wondering what type of training aids that you use. And I'll be in touch to discuss further via email, but we would like to know, and particularly CenturyLink would like to know if you'd be interested in the possibility of testing a new tracking device. So I'll definitely be in touch with the recording, tracking device information, and a couple other things. But I just want to thank you so much for joining. Appreciate your time, and we'll jump right into the Q&A.
Okay, thank you, Mackenzie. So if anybody has any questions, now's the time to ask Trapper, myself, Mackenzie. And you can, I see that some of you have your phones on. If not, if you'd like to ask questions through the chat function, please feel free to do that as well.
Hi, this is Todd Davis. I'll go ahead and kick it off. First, I want to thank our corporate participants and guests for accepting the invitation to participate. This is going to be a lot of fun, and look forward to meeting all of you out in Colorado, if not sooner. My question for any one of the staff, or maybe you have different opinions on this, is does the Training Peaks plan, the 14-week plan you've devised, does that assume you're starting at a certain baseline? So, for example, what if you've already done some endurance events or some road races or some other events recently? Should we change the plan to adjust for that, or is this at any point in your season?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I'll take that. This is Troy. I appreciate that question as well. So the plan is definitely what we consider to be for intermediate to advanced athletes, and it is fairly aggressive in terms of its volume, duration, intensity, because it's getting everyone ready to be in peak form for a very serious event. So not knowing exactly what events you've been doing or what your current fitness level is about, I would suggest that you could probably jump into the progression and be okay with it. Because again, you're looking at roughly 10 hours, or if not a little bit more, per week of training. If you have specific questions about your program, then please feel free to reach out to me and let me know basically what you've been doing, what kind of training you've been doing roughly over the last 4 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks, and then I can offer some suggestions on how to tweak the program slightly so it better suits your current fitness level. So feel free to reach out to me, and I'll be more than happy to help you with that.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Hey, Troy, good evening. It's Brent Wyman. I would echo what Todd said. Looking forward to spending some time with everyone here on the call at 10,000 feet above sea level at a very interesting place at an interesting time. You know, as a predominantly road biker guy, maybe I'm only hearing what I want to hear. I've talked to a number of finishers and am getting, you know, generally a sense that it's not a tremendously technical course. But then I hear, you know, stories like yours. So, you know, I don't know what the how to define the question, because, you know, it's going to be fairly arbitrary. but would you say it is or is not a technical mountain bike event?
Well, okay, so I really appreciate this question too. So I came from triathlon background, raced as a professional, put in lots of 300 and 400 mile weeks, considered myself a pretty good road cyclist. I could descend, we have Mount Lemmon out here in Tucson, and I could descend that basically without brakes and go pretty darn fast, 45 miles per hour, and feel very comfortable doing it. I thought that skill set would translate to the mountain bike pretty quickly. For me, it didn't. And it wasn't that I was horrible on the mountain bike. It was just one section that I didn't navigate it properly, and perhaps if I had more experience on the mountain bike, I would have. But I actually went over the bars, broke my collarbone and some ribs, so the game was over for me that day. But the point is, I want to make to you, and I appreciate the fact that you're a road cyclist, don't underestimate your need to be on the mountain bike and develop those skill sets. If you talk to a skilled mountain biker like Trapper, he'll probably say, and Trapper, I'm not going to speak for you, but he'll probably say it is a very roady course, because there are actually a lot of sections where you ride on the roads. But there are some sections that if you don't have fundamental mountain bike skills and you're not really set up for that, or you're not really experienced in some of those areas and how to handle your body weight and how to shift the bike underneath of you, you might have a difficult time. So I would definitely don't underestimate your need to ride the mountain bike. So make sure you get on the mountain bike and practice those basic skills of riding off-road, riding on single track, riding on Jeep roads. There's a lot of Jeep roads, but there are some really steep descents where you just need to know how to manage the bike properly. Trapper, do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, absolutely. And you summed it up, Troy, but the thing I would say is Leadville and this course gets a reputation for being a roadie course because so many mountain bikers are just used to single track. And while there's very little single track on this course, I think a total of maybe 3 miles out of the entire 103. Troy's making a great point. You're still going over a lot of rocky terrain. It's still very undulating, and that's stuff you just don't experience on a road bike if you're riding on decent roads. So yeah, being able to shift your weight and adjust for the looseness of the gravel and the sand and whatever terrain it is, and you never know if it's going to be dry or muddy. So very solid point. Do not underestimate the fact it is a mountain bike race. You need to spend time on a mountain bike, and you need to be comfortable descending at speed on a mountain bike as well. Just for safety's sake. I'm not suggesting that you need to make up speed on a descent, but to be safe, we all want to finish this race. We don't want to be sending anybody in a helicopter.
Great, thanks. Appreciate the insight.
Good evening. This is Alan Starnes. I appreciate all the organization and look forward to meeting everybody in Colorado. Quick question on the corral start. Can you touch on a little bit of where we'll start in the group and how important it is to be kind of near the front or towards the front if we're trying to have a competitive finish time? Thanks.
So this is Mackenzie. I will actually touch a teensy bit on this, and then I'll let somebody else take it away. But you are able to transfer out of the status that we currently have you in. But I'll let Trapper and Troy speak more to the corral specifically and what that means. But if you do qualify, we will absolutely switch your status if that's helpful.
Mackenzie, this is Sarah. I can jump in real quick on that too. Everybody in the Executive Challenge will be starting in the blue corral. You are able to qualify for a corral farther up if you do one of our qualifiers. Silver Rush is in July, the second weekend. You're able to jump up your start area based on your time. You would reach out to our athlete services team. After that, you could also qualify for a better corral time via our Lutsen 99er in Lutsen, Minnesota, which is June 24th.
Great. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Hey, this is Trevor. I can speak real quick on the corral position and how that might impact your race. Much less than you might imagine, to tell you the truth. In fact, it's such a long course that if you're going out with such a vengeance that you want to be in a lead pack, naturally you would be qualifying up into a higher corral. But if that's your goal from the blue corral, you're gonna ruin your day real quick. So my advice is sit in for the first 20 minutes, 30 minutes as you get through, getting out of town and up onto the St. Kevin's climb. The course used to be narrow enough that you might be forced off your bike and to push it, but anymore it's been ridden so much and groomed so well that you should be able to ride around the slower riders if you're a much higher level. The best example I can give of this is Rebecca Rush. And if anyone doesn't know who she is, she's a multi-time world champion, 24-hour mountain biker. She's won Leadville several times, an amazing athlete. And the thing that I respect most about her is she never goes out hard at the beginning. You never see Rebecca until the second half of the course when she rides by every single person on her way back from Columbine. So think about pacing. Don't worry about where you're starting this race. It's not going to impact your day unless you're trying to win the thing. And if you are, I love it. We can talk more about that later.
Great. I appreciate the information. Definitely not trying to win the thing. Just didn't know if drafting is a huge element on race day and getting in with a fast pack is beneficial.
It certainly is. It certainly is. And that's a great tactic. We can, again, talk more about tactics of racing. But, yeah, as much energy as you can conserve. But, again, not to the extent that it forces you out of your comfort zone just to get there. But great question. Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, guys. This is Casey. I was wondering if we would be receiving feedback on our training that we upload through the Training Preaks program.
This is Troy. I can answer that. The program's not designed to offer feedback unsolicited, but if you have questions or you have any concerns during your training, we are available to help you with that. We do offer personalized coaching services, which is beyond the scope of this program, but if during the course of your training with this existing program, you have any questions, just let Trapper or I know, and we can make some adjustments for you.
Great, thanks.
Yep.
Hi guys, this is Tom Moran, and like the other folks at CenturyLink, I'm really pleased that CenturyLink has stepped up to sponsor this event this year, and looking forward to meeting everybody, and for me, participating in my first Leadville. And also, I will be at the Lucin 99er if any of you are planning to attend that race. But my question is, I'm relatively new to the power-based training, and I've previously kind of worked almost exclusively with heart rate. And I'm wondering if you guys can give me any sort of guidance about, should I be looking to try to plan to kind of ride my race based on power, or should I be kind of, sticking with my sort of tried and true perceived effort of exertion? Being someone who lives in Minnesota at basically sea level, I guess one of my biggest concerns is just the elevation and how that's going to impact me, and kind of the difficulty in anticipating that and trying to figure out what my strategy should be and how that might impact my training.
Sure. Trapper, I'll take that, and if you have anything to add, please do. So first of all, the altitude affects people differently. So some people don't get negatively affected to the same degree as others. So that'll be a variable that we don't know yet. But let's just be clear, you will be affected by the altitude to some percentage. Whether or not to use power as your training metric, or heart rate, or perceived effort, that is also a variable. Certainly using power, and if you have a power meter on your mountain bike, that's going to be a good way to measure your output. Keeping in mind, however, that whatever numbers you're producing in Minnesota, they're going to be different at Leadville at 10,000 feet. So there needs to be some calculation or recalculation as to what your functional threshold power may be out there on the course. So that'll take a little bit of time and effort on your part to determine what that'll be. Heart rate will also be a variable at altitude. So everything that you're familiar with at sea level will change a little bit. So again, you'll need to calculate those numbers accordingly. One thing that's very important is that you come to Leadville on race day with your highest possible VO2 max. And that's why in the course of the training progression, you'll see that we do have a fair amount of high-end work, work done in, if you're using a Coggin power zone paradigm, up there in zone 5, zone 6, where you're at 105% to 115% of FTP, because you want to come into Leadville with your highest VO2 possible, because at 10,000 feet, that's going to decline, as Trapper said, somewhere in the ballpark of 4.4 to 10% at that altitude. So coming into race day in peak form is going to be really important. And then if you're using these different tools to measure your performance, adjusting your metrics downward accordingly so that you're able to, stay in the right ranges. Because again, you're not going to be able to perform at the same levels that you did when you're in Minnesota. So it's, for me, and athletes that I've worked with in the past who've done Leadville, I always leverage perceived effort as one metric, and then whichever other metric they're really accustomed to using, they're most comfortable with using, whether it's heart rate or power, to leverage that one as well, and to coordinate the two so that the athlete can get the best idea of how to pace themselves properly out there on race day. But Trapper made a great point. Rebecca Rush, who, again, legendary mountain biker, she goes out far below where she probably could. She doesn't burn her matches early on. And I think for a lot of first timers at any big race like this, you are going to be so fired up. Your anxiety levels are going to be so high at the starting line. All these people, all the hype, all the training, all the preparation, the gun goes off, boom, everyone's out like a shot. And that's a mistake. I mean, it's a mistake, and I think Trapper will agree, whether you're doing ultra-distance mountain biking, you're doing marathoning, you're doing Ironman racing, you have to conserve your matches. So if there's one thing that I can say to you as a coach, it's be prepared to hold yourself back in those first phases of the race, because if you do that, you're going to have a much stronger finish. But back to your initial question, if you're interested in more specific information about how to measure your output and your strategy for race day, Trapper and I would be happy to spend time with you and help you design that plan.
I'll add on real quick. Troy, great answer. Tom, just to put in my 2 cents on that, I would train with power. I would race without it. And to everything Troy just said, it's a valid measure of workload, whereas heart rate is absolutely not a valid measure of workload. Heart rate is a measure of stress because there's so many other things that come into play with affecting your heart rate. So I would train with power. Again, get your VO2 and your power up as high as you can. And when you get to Leadville, throw it out the window, because if you're trying to go out and hit a certain power metric on the first climb, you'll burn through all those matches, like Troy said.
That's great. Thanks, guys. And I'll definitely be following up on that.
Okay, we're a little bit over time, but we're happy to hang out and answer any other questions anybody has.
This is Todd. I just have one bookend type of question. So I'm doing a big endurance event on the 22nd, and a gravel race, and I'm a little worried about doing my functional threshold power test a couple days later. Can I do that ahead of time?
Sure. Yeah, I see no problem with that. Yep. The FTP test is just a way to establish your baseline fitness, to get a sense of where you are, and basically to give you some of those training zones for the rest of the program. But yeah, absolutely. You can do it around any time in this time frame, that's absolutely fine. Yep.
Terrific. Thank you.
Yep. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, well, I know from our perspective, on the trainer side, the coaching side, again, if you have any questions whatsoever, please reach out to Trapper or I. I believe you have our emails online. If not, Mackenzie can certainly send them to you, and we'll be more than happy to help you. We have another call scheduled for the future, and Mackenzie, I'll hand it over to you now.
Thank you so much. I just want to say thank you to all of you for joining this evening. We don't have too much more to report on the Lifetime Executive Challenge staff side, but I'll definitely be in touch tomorrow with a link and a few follow-up questions so that you will be able to review the recording of the webinar. Certainly feel free to reach out, and we'll be in touch soon. And of course, next up would be our second webinar. So we'll be in touch with more details once we solidify that date for you. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Take care. Happy weekend.